Everyone in power thinks their money will last. Always. Every ability thinks its money is unique, different, and safe to the forces that crushed those who came before. However, history has a very dark sense of humor. It goes through the same 8 rounds again and again and again, like a broken record over hundreds of years. And right now, as you keep an eye on this, the dollar is at stage 6. The British pound used to be the seas and markets around the world. Before that, it was the Dutch guilder who ruled the world. Thank you. The franc from France and the real, the real of Portugal. All rights reserved. All of these currencies are powerful and dead, and everyone did the exact same thing. Design, and the same steady drop from being strong to falling apart. The only "it" was never if, but when. What? What makes this scary today is that we're seeing it happen right now. The dollar is not just another coin, no longer. In the beginning, it was the world's banking system. When it hits the ground, and past events show it will, the shockwave won't be limited to one country or one continent. Everything will change. Let me show you the 8 steps that killed all the major currencies in history. When this show is over, you will see where the dollar is, what it is, and what it does next. Since the formula doesn't change, only the players do. The first stage is always the same. Dominance by being strong. A country goes up to military and economic top spot. And the world starts to use its money for business. This isn't an accident. Reserve currencies don't do that. Picked by a committee or an international. Yes, I agree, they show up because of one power gets so strong that having money becomes the smart thing to do for everyone else. Think about Britain in the 1800s. 100 years. The Royal Navy was in charge of seas. British companies made the revolution in industry. London turned into the world's banking hub. Shop owners from New York to Shanghai found it. It's easier to trade pounds than to mess up, with a lot of different coins. The pound was more than just money. It was trust in British power turned into liquid. Things went the same way with the Dutch guilder in the 1600s. Amsterdam was the center of trade in Europe. Dutch banks backed trade across continents. Dutch ships brought goods to everywhere in the world that we know of. When you had to keep, sell, or buy something, you did it in guilders because you were rich. I saw a lot of action there. However, what every powerful country misses. The reserve currency is made by strength, but strength by itself can't keep it up. Stage 1 always leads to stage 2, extending too far. When you succeed, people who are ambitious tend to go too far. The powerful nation starts to think that your own lies. If we're so strong, why not grow even more? If our money, take advantage of the fact that you rule the world. Getting the most power? The Empire of Britain was spread out over 6 countries. The Dutch tried to keep trade lines to Indonesia from the Caribbean. Every reserve currency country does the same mistake. They mix up temporary control and a permanent edge. The military spends a lot of money. More bureaucracies are made. How much it costs to maintaining global power spiral beyond what the local economy can support. But instead of pulling back, they double down because escape feels like weakness, and weakness threatens the very base of their monetary dominance. This is where stage 3 begins. Deficit spending becomes the norm. The government starts spending telling itself it gathers more than it gives. That lack of funds doesn't matter when everyone wants your money. And for a while, it looks like this will work. Other countries they need your bonds because they need money. Exchange. Their problems become yours. Sets aside. It is a lovely design, as long as they are sure. Britain ran keeping up debts to pay for its global. There are troops there. The Dutch took out loans, a lot of money to trade with businesses and experiences in colonial times. Each they told themselves they were putting money into a bright future. Each thought their unique situation made normal financial rules. Not important. The cash went out, but there was more money coming back in, because the world needed their money to work. But deficits get worse Debt adds up, and eventually, even countries with backup currencies. Figure out that math doesn't care about your place in the world, which brings we're now at stage 4. The writing starts. When tax money isn't enough to cover spending and it costs more to borrow, there is an opportunity for governments. Spend less, either raise taxes or make money from nothing. When you cut spending, accepting too much extension. Putting up taxes means political death at home. So they picked the third choice, the one. At first, that doesn't seem painful. They print. Britain stopped making gold ability to change sides during World War I, creating pounds to pay for the war and work. The Dutch lower the value of their money to pay for their never-ending fights with France and Spain. All of the backup currencies, the whole country finds the same delicious secret. When you're in charge of the world currency, you can send your inflation abroad. Everywhere, every other country has to. Please accept your new money because, for business, they need it. Problems you have turn into problems for everyone else. Further, this works sometimes. The money used as a backup, the country pays for its debts with new cash, and the world takes in the results. The world's prices go up, but at first, slowly. The system seems to be stable, even as its base breaks down. This is the most dangerous stage because feels like it will last. There is a lot of pain, large enough that no one country can force a change. But stage 5 is already taking shape. Competing powers start to take notice. They see the country that prints the backup currency, money, having debts, and sending goods abroad inflation. They watch over their own losing purchasing power while the ruling power spends more than it earns. The anger grows, and eventually that angry feelings turn into actions. The Spanish started to refuse to accept debased coins from other countries in Europe. The French started to ask for gold instead of British pounds to pay for some things. Other countries started making their own trade deals, their own money and plans, anything to cut down on being tied to a coin they no longer use, I fully trusted. This is where the cracks are become clear. Settlements for trade change. Getting away from the main cash, central banks spread out their funds. New payment methods appear to get around the old ones not sharing. The country with the reserve currency. It still has the upper hand, but that power is no longer unlimited. There is competition where there wasn't any before. In the 6th stage, the dollar sits today. Decline speeds up. The printing happens all the time now. Lacks are very big, as well as enemy powers actively making other options. The backup currency is still useful, has a big part of world trade, but going down. Every emergency needs more help, making more money and more. Using deficit spending to keep the system running. The medicine that used to make things better now leads to more. Both China and Russia. They use their own money to trade. The European Union sets up ways to pay, not tied to dollar clearing. Center banks store gold and other valuables wealth. Producers of oil accept cash in monies besides the dollar. Each development seems small when looked at by itself, but all of them together show a major change. Everything is quiet. Getting ready for a world without dollars. Having power. The country with the reserve currency often replies to stage 6 with being mean. Sanctions and trade wars, acting like a soldier, anything to force other countries to depend on them again. But these steps will only speed up the drop because they show what competitors thought all along. What a reserve money has turned into a tool, and when people have guns, they look for shields. Britain tried to keep the pound power through imperial choice and controls on the cash. The Dutch tried to get their colonies to use as only guilders. Every falling down reserve power makes the same thing, very desperate moves, and all of them fail. Force makes resistance. Force leads to options, which brings us to the above which stage 7 starts. Trouble and speeding up. This is where a slow slide turns into a quick fall. A military loss, a financial crisis, or just the result of years of bad luck. Making choices makes people lose confidence. Foreigners who own the currency start selling. The writing speeds up to cover losses, but this makes things worse. Confidence more quickly. The loop of feedback S turns mean. Stage 7 has taken all ever used as a backup currency. The pound broke down after World War II, when Britain could no longer keep up its a world part. The guilder died when Dutch. The king's power dropped in the 1800s. Each crisis seemed one of a kind at the time, but it always went the same way. Too much extension caused losses. Lax this led to printing. Making prints led to the competition, and competition made fall apart. Stage 8 is the last stage. Switch out. A new major power comes out and the world takes its money as the new backup. The old money doesn't just leave overnight, but it will never again have that special standing. Changes in trade flows and central bank funds balance out, and the old hegemon returns to living within its means, often very badly. But this is what makes today is different and more dangerous than any change before. The greenback isn't just another money store. There has never been a truly global one before. History. When the pound was in charge, most of the world still did business outside influence of Britain. During the Gilda's rule, it was only used for trade in Europe, in networks. But the dollar has made its way in, every part of the world economy in ways that no other reserve currency ever done. Every deal with oil, every central bank has a foreign bond reserve, every big trade in goods, money that moves through the dollar system. The rest of the world didn't just use American money. American goods became important to it. Infrastructure for finance, quick banks that work with networks, government bonds, Federal Reserve exchange lines. The whole structure of global money is measured in dollars and run from Washington, D.C. and New York. This means the fall won't happen slowly. Like the changes before, it's not possible. There are too many links in the system, used too complicated for a smooth pass-off. When finally trust breaks down, when it ends, it will be deadly and happen quickly. A huge amount of money and property will need to get new places to live. Chains of supply will cease. There will be no trade. The dependency that made the dollar so full of power will make its collapse was so terrible, and the signs being made more of. The Central Bank of China. Digital money isn't just a try-something. It's building blocks for a after-doll world. None of the BRICS countries are. We're only meeting for a shot, chances to shine. They're making payments, platforms, clearinghouses, and trade agreements that don't involve American power. It's so quiet that even traditional allies are putting together alternatives. This is Europe Union's system for instant payments works, deals without touching the dollar in networks. Both Japan and India are growing. They're deals to swap currencies. Iraqi Arabia is the most important part of the petrodollar system. We'll trade oil for UAN payments. Each change seems too technical, clerical, and almost boring. But all of them together show the base of a new monetary order. What makes this particularly dangerous is that America seems unable to recognize the threat. The response to each challenge has been more sanctions, more financial warfare, more attempts to weaponize dollar dominance. But every sanction teaches the world that dollar dependence is dangerous. Every frozen asset, every block transaction, every use of SWIFT as a weapon creates demand for alternatives. Russia's exclusion from dollar markets after the Ukraine invasion accelerated trends that were already building. Nations that had no quarrel with America suddenly realized their vulnerability. If Russia could be cut off overnight, so could they. The result was a stampede toward currency diversification and alternative payment systems. America thought it was punishing one enemy. Instead, it terrified dozens of potential allies. The mathematics of decline are accelerating too. American debt now exceeds 100% of gross domestic product. Interest payments alone consume more than the entire defense budget. Social Security and Medicare obligations stretch beyond any realistic ability to pay. The Federal Reserve has printed more money in the last 15 years than in the previous century combined, and still the deficits grow larger. Every crisis requires more intervention. The pandemic response created trillions in new dollars. The banking sector crisis of 2023 demanded even more liquidity. Each rescue operation weakens the currency and strengthens the case for alternatives. The medicine is becoming the poison, but stopping treatment would trigger immediate collapse. It's a trap with no painless exit. Foreign holders are already voting with their feet. Central banks are buying gold at rates not seen since the 1970s. China has reduced its treasury holdings to levels not seen in over a decade. Even traditional allies are quietly diversifying away from dollar assets. The process is slow, careful, designed not to trigger panic, but it's relentless. The irony is brutal. America created the most successful reserve currency system in history, and that very success is now its weakness. The greenback is everywhere, which means replacing it requires coordination and time. But once the process begins, it becomes self-reinforcing. Every nation that moves away from dollars makes it safer for others to follow. The network effect that built dollar dominance will accelerate its decline. Stage 7 looms closer with each passing crisis. The next financial shock, the next geopolitical conflict, the next inflation surge could be the catalyst that breaks confidence permanently. When that happens, the transition won't be managed or gradual. It will be chaotic, sudden, and brutal. The question isn't whether the dollar will lose its reserve status. History says that fate awaits every dominant currency. The question is what comes next and whether America can survive the transition. Because when the world's reserve currency collapses, it doesn't just affect exchange rates and trade flows. It reshapes power itself. Previous transitions took decades and affected regional economies. This one will take years and affect everyone. The country that has lived beyond its means for generations will suddenly face the constraints that bind every other nation. The global hegemon will become just another country struggling with debt, inflation, and economic reality. But history also teaches that collapse creates opportunity. The nations that position themselves correctly, that build real productive capacity instead of financial complexity, that understand the difference between wealth and money, will inherit the future. The question is whether you'll be ready when the music stops. Because stage 8 is coming, and when it arrives, everything changes. The collapse won't announce itself with headlines or government warnings. It will begin quietly in the machinery of international finance that most people never see. A failed treasury auction here, a currency swap cancellation there. Central banks will start making excuses for why they need to diversify their reserves. Financial commentators will call it prudent risk management, not the beginning of the end. But the smart money always moves first. The families and institutions that have survived previous collapses understand the signals. They don't wait for confirmation or official announcements. They act while others debate. By the time the crisis becomes obvious to everyone else, the exits are already crowded and the prices have moved. What does preparation look like when the world's reserve currency is dying? It's not just about buying gold or foreign assets, though those matter. It's about understanding that the entire financial system you've known your whole life is built on assumptions that history proves wrong. The dollar checking account, the treasury bond portfolio, the municipal bonds, the corporate debt, even the cash under your mattress. All of it depends on a system that's already cracking. The pattern has repeated 5 times before and it will repeat again. 8 stages, same outcome, different century. The dollar sits at stage 6 and stages 7 and 8 are coming whether we acknowledge them or not. History doesn't negotiate and it doesn't make exceptions. The question isn't if this system collapses, but whether you'll be one of the few who saw it coming or one of the many who trusted the promises right up until the end. Because when the music stops, there won't be enough chairs for everyone.